Figuring out the right time to sell your GovCon business is an extremely personal decision. There are really three factors that go into it. The first one is whether or not you, as the owner, are ready to make the transition from being a business owner to essentially having more of a life. It's hard to walk away from a company that you've been working on for 10 or 15 or 20 years. You've got to determine whether or not you're ready to make that transition. The second thing is whether or not your company is ready. That is, there's a lot of factors that go into determining whether or not it's the right time to sell your GovCon company. While there's a lot of factors, probably the most important is how strong your backlog is. If your backlog is equal to at least 2 times what your current revenue is, then that's a pretty healthy amount of backlog to bring to market. If it's less than 2 times, then you've got some work to do before bringing your company to market. But there are other issues to determine whether or not your company is ready. The third factor is what's going on in the macro world. The micro world is you and your company. The macro world is what's going on with inflation or politics or war in Europe, etc. As a general rule, those macro issues are much more important to larger companies than they are to GovCon companies, particularly smaller GovCon companies, because in many ways GovCon is counter-cyclical. That is, when the economy declines, GovCon tends to rise. When interest rates are a factor, that doesn't really make a big difference to companies that are under $100 million in value. So it's very good to be aware of what's going on in the macro environment, whether it's interest rates or inflation or those kinds of issues. But the most important factor in determining whether it's time to bring your company to market is whether or not you as the owner are ready and whether or not your company is ready for that transaction.